weekend, them things there, it's a madness. Absolute madness. But yeah, Rafael's doing his thing. Moving away from all of that, though, folks, moving away from all of that, I actually want to go over Arsenal Brighton quickly as well, because it's going to be the longest segment of this. So I think it's time to just go over that really quickly, really now. Now, against Brighton, obviously Arsenal, we're lucky to get a point in it. Like, we're lucky, Brighton, I would say if I was Graham Potter, I think they were excellent in everything they could be asked apart from finishing. They should have scored. Again, I don't know who's fit, who's injured, who's this and that. But considering that, it's a big game against an Arsenal team that's found form, both teams are in a decent health and no one wants to lose. I think they outdone us tactically, but where Brighton's concerned, I'm sure Graham Potter would say, we need to learn how to put the ball into the back of the net. But if I scroll down, where Arsenal's concerned beyond the obvious, I'm going to say positives. When you can't win, don't lose. Now, there's a lot of improvements to make in that Arsenal team. A lot of improvements. And I don't think it was perfect. And like I said, if Brighton could finish just like against Spurs, the landscape of our last two games could have been completely different. But shoulda, woulda, coulda, while it's something to consider and build upon, it's not a fact. And facts are, we weren't playing poor. We weren't poor, but we were sloppy. We were second best. We didn't win our first and second battles. We were lackluster. We didn't really play with the application we did at the Emirates. And really on the road, I know we beat Burnley, but I'm looking at this game. I'm looking at Brentford, where two teams that are up for it and buzzing. It's not that we were bad, we struggled in it, so there's a lot to learn. But when you can't win, don't lose. We got away with a point. There's times where we would probably lose that game by a handsome scoreline, as we probably should have in that first half, but we didn't really. We walked away. I did think there was fight. I did think there was grit. I do think clearly it became clear it's not our day. Players are not going to shine too much individually. It's a wet and windy day. You have to compete for the first and seconds. Certain players, Tomiyasu's been riding high. It was a tough day, and I think he was quite poor watching the game again. His throw-ins as well. I think we gifted the ball away to the opposition a lot. But considering that, we walked away with something. And I think out of a possible 12 from our last 4 games, fans need to keep some perspective. Again, we could have done better. And this is where two truths can live in the same realm. We could have done better. We should have done better. There's many things we could have done better to maybe get more of a positive result. But let's be real. Potential 12 points from, 10 points from a potential 12. Come on now. Let's keep some perspective. That's definitely where Arsenal are. And I would say this game, quote unquote, brings everybody connected to Arsenal, from the fans to the players, whatever, back down to earth, because there was a lot of things that we need to work on beyond the obvious that I've just stated. But also, while we need to, for me, we need to work on a singular way of playing. We need to really look at our identity. We haven't got that. Arteta is finally showing us some stability in the lineup, who he's using, etc., etc. But the same token of that, in the Premier League, you can't just play the same way. So right now, we need to lock down one singular way of playing, but we also need to know when to make changes. Now, again, going into that game, everybody who started against Brighton deserves to start. It's as simple as that. They turned it on against Spurs. Xhaka's fit. Xhaka probably deserves to start. He probably would have given us a bit more in midfield, not to say he was needed to win, because it's always the one that isn't involved. But this is where now we need to learn. Brighton are not the same as against Spurs. Away against Brighton is different. We're going into a back three. Could we have went up with 2 up front? Could we have went with, while Smith Rowe was amazing? And I do think there's going to be games as I always said, you need one of Odegaard or one of Smith Rowe or both. I think that game in reflection, Odegaard presses and whatnot, but it became clear that maybe Arteta had to bite the bullet. It's either Odegaard or Smith Rowe, one of them on the bench. You go with maybe a Pepe and Saka, or you pull a Bamian through. You pull a Bamian to the left. You bring on Lacazette for a game like this where you need a physical man. Or for me, I probably would have changed to a back three and gone 2 up front, because I do think, and I'll show it tactically in a second, as much as a Bamian may or may not have been poor, is stick or twist, because you're playing against 3 centre halves. That you can't press alone. They're going to pass around you. Brighton can play ball. They're going to pass around you. You can't physically outdo them. There was occasions where he was on the last man, and I think he could have stayed on side for a lovely pass. Partey found him, but you're not going to get too much of that. And as you can see, Arteta favours holding the shape. Definitely against Brighton. You could see 11 men behind the ball. Odegaard doing that support striker, sort of pressing off the ball with Aubameyang. If we're going to do that, then the back three is going to have nothing, where their back three is going to have no problem. Where obviously, if you go with a Lacazette and a Aubameyang, make them press, make them be aggressive, you get your 3 men in midfield like Brighton had, it was an issue, because I think Arteta lost the tactical battle. He did lose the tactical battle. If it's not broke, don't fix it. We found a bit of form. I'm not going to say if you switched it to a 3 and we were shaky, we might be sitting there and having that conversation as well. But this is where we need to know when to rotate and when to change things and bring certain people in, because we're playing a team that's very good tactically, very good technically, significantly more experienced than our average age of 22, 23. And I think it showed. Lallana in the middle, that Mulder brother in the middle, Pascal Gross in the middle, Coriella again, because we're not asking much of that back three, specifically the centre halves. Coriella's just going forward. As you know, in a back three, the fullbacks are gonna pull forward. I think we could have done better with Mark Coriella on the left, Veltman on the left, on the right as well, because obviously Smith Rowe, for me, man of the match from an Arsenal perspective, ran the show. But his skill set, and I know he popped up all over the field and made some bursting runs, but primarily he's gonna come quite narrow. He's narrow. We're narrow on the other side. We're narrow as a team. You can see how their fullbacks are going to stay high, stay wide, and lo and behold, they had a lot of joy, really and truly. And you've got an experienced midfield. You've got Tossart, who's for me playing like a devil. A real devil. And I know the Belgian lads also call themselves the Devils as a nickname as well. He's moving like that. He's getting on the ball, looking for 1-2s. Mupe didn't have the best of games, but he's making moves. On another day, these things go against us. Another positive I'd also say is one thing I like and I've been liking. There's going to be times where collectively we all play bad, or certain, a one man might play bad. And I said it before, in defense, it weren't Tomiyasu's day. But I like to see Ramsdale, Ben White, Gabriel pulling him through it. Same way it might not have been Ben White's game previously, and that's happened. Gabriel and Tierney are going to drop off. I don't think Tierney was terrible, but Tierney's also had a shaky start to the campaign, and once again, didn't really offer nothing. I do feel as well in that midfield, on top of losing the battle, obviously from a tactical point of view, people, I think, maybe in hindsight, maybe Lokonga could have switched with Partey. Partey, the more experienced, maybe he could have been the guy that covered for Tierney, because I do think that game was a bit of a shell shock to Tomiyasu and Lokonga in terms of welcome to the Premier and all these sort of things. And I think Lokonga showed he's still got a lot to work on at times. I did think he'd done all right, but at times he's missing out. And I think at times he's not looking over his shoulder. And I think Partey's a bit more experienced. Could he have done that? That's just something for Arteta to have in mind. But saying that again, it's 2 man against 5 in midfield. We're always going to lose it, no matter how much you make Aubameyang get behind the ball, Smith Rowe tucking, etc. We're always gonna struggle. And as I said, with positives, people, and again, Arsenal cannot win every game. I think this game brought people back down to reality. We can diagnose it and say we could have done better, but it's not a winning. I would love to be that, but unless we're Man City or Liverpool, which they didn't win, it's not a winning thing every week for Arsenal. It's not. We're not going to win every game. We've got a long way to go. We're not anywhere near a team capable of realistically getting Europe and whatever. Yeah, we ride the highs and lows of, definitely the lows at the start. Beating Spurs, it's always nice. You can be happy, but we need to remember how far this team has to go. And there's going to be many teething issues. Now, I don't want to say we got away with it, but we got away with it against Brighton. We lived to fight another day. I think we got away with it against Brighton. I think the second half against Spurs, we got away with it. I wouldn't go as far as to say we got away with it against Burnley and Norwich, but sometimes when you don't kill games, that costs you. Like, again, if that Ben White penalty is given against Burnley, if certain incidences go a different way against Spurs, if Cedric and Gabriel don't make them blocks against Norwich, we don't get 3 points in these games. And at some point, that's going to come back to bite us. So that's something to be wary of. And this is what I mean. We've got a long way to go as a team. So games like this, it's never nice to draw or whatever, but it brings you back down to reality. And, you look at the Liverpool game, City were all over them in the first half. Liverpool could have win a couple of goals down, really. It was quite toothless in the first half from Liverpool. They didn't kill the game. Liverpool came on this thing in the second half. Now, if Liverpool could have defended better, they might have robbed it in the second. If City had a bit more attacking intent by their own standards, they might have killed the game in the first half. Instead, they've taken a point. You need to kill games. Now, and that's actually what Brighton did. They didn't finish their dinner against us. We was there for the taking. Their poor finishing and shots on target's the reason they didn't win. Big save from Ramsdale, etc., etc. And again, also, we need to learn how to turn it on week in, week out, because as I said, come the evening against Spurs when we've won, it means F all, because it is what it is. But again, this is a team that we're all scared to go to the Amex against, a team that is performing and in good form. While I would have loved to have won, and I do think it was a bigger test than the Brighton game, we didn't lose in it. As I said, 10 from 12. Don't think it's anything to shout about. Don't think it's anything to be overly negative about. Just think it's a platform. And I just think we cannot go from one week to the other. 1 week we're rubbish, next week we're amazing. We've got to keep some middle ground and really consider this team has a long way to go. In terms of negatives, in short, people, Lost the midfield battle. It felt like everyone was quite nervous. Everything was rushed. Was outnumbered all over the field. That's one for Arteta. A way of defending is how you hold on to the ball. And if we're meant, there's meant to be a serious golfing class between our technical level and Brighton's. I think if we can't match them, how you hold on to the ball is a way of defending. And we was camped in our own half and we're giving the ball back away again, time and time again to them. We need to do better than that, because again, that's just making us tired. I think Tomiyasu with his throw-ins needs to look at what he's doing, and I think he was quite wasteful in that game as well. I did think ball retention wasn't good enough, lack of technical quality, midfield imbalance. There was too many gaps in our transition. The press was rubbish. We didn't get forwards enough numbers forward to support the attackers. For me, games like that also show for me that this midfield, what two midfielders of real quality can do for you and really improve in games like that. As much as I feel I like Smith Rowe and Odegaard in the team, we need to take it on a case by case basis. We don't need to force both of them into the 11, in my opinion. Definitely when you're going against a back three, where maybe you could have went with more men. As I said, it felt like Aubameyang's outnumbered. So yeah, man. Again, shout out to Brighton and all of these sort of things for their performance. But if we look at it, couple of bits and pieces from a tactical front, where do I start? Now, obviously, this was our shape in reality, people. Now, again, I'll get back to this, but you saw a 3-5-2 from Brighton. I'm going to get back to this in a second, people. Primarily, Brighton, I'll just show you Brighton's formation without, obviously, all the stuff going on. It just looks a bit more cleaner. Now, you already know. Now, let's get a keeper in goal for them as well, because they didn't play with 10 men. But Brighton, they're a very technically excellent side with a fantastic coach, but the players are very sensible. Mulder, I've never seen him have more opportunities than I ever had against us. He had half chances. Lallana, you can't put a price on experience in the middle there. Pascal Gross, very technical. Veltman had a good day going forward, and you can see why he's keeping Tariq Lamptey out the team temporarily. Coriella, their man of the match. For me, I was more impressed with their back three because of how they defended, because of how they read the game. But in reality, this is where we was in trouble, because our press was a one-man thing of Aubameyang. At best, you were seeing Aubameyang on times. He was on the last shoulder. He might win the occasional header or duel, but long story short, he's not there. And I'm going to show you over in the last graphic, but he's dropping because we want to hold our shape. So naturally, that says, you know what, fullback 1, fullback 2, you man get higher. Centre half, not too far, but provide some width. Dan Burner's actually played left back in a back four for Brighton on times as well. And I don't think he's amazing, but I've said it before. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the Premier League in terms of competencies. He's very competent at just doing his job. They pulled out wide. You had Sanchez, you had Ethel to do. You had their midfielders, Mulder's going forward. And again, you can see how we're going to start getting eaten alive. You've obviously got Tossart and Mupé. If you're not good, the only way you can't match teams against teams like this is if we've got better quality. So this is where we're in problems. Now, if you could imagine our midfield, where we're already in losing battle because we're going against a 3, a 5 if you include the fullbacks. And then we're not helping ourselves because Smith Rowe was amazing. But he should have just been the 10 in this game. Everyone's a genius in hindsight, but he probably should have just been in the 10. Go with a direct winger. Give these lot something to think about. Because even Saka's being told to get narrow. Coriella didn't really have much to do. You saw an occasion when him and Dan Burner having decent little fights and things like that. So I did think we shagged ourselves. In reality, in the first half, I think our shape was something like this. You had, give or take, not to scale, you had Odegaard slightly off Aubameyang or whatnot, say what you want, but I think we was more or less like this. Smith Rowe is tucking in, and there was obviously occasions Smith Rowe is a bumblebee, buzzes around and does everything everywhere, people. But we was probably too narrow. Then you had, again, hopefully it's still clear to see, but you had Veltman in our half. Coriella, again, Spanish fullback, he's going to want to go forward. He's in our half. Let's really exaggerate. He's in our half. Pardon me. Tossart is picking up lovely little spots. So you've got Tossart. Where's Mupé? You've got Mupé because they went with a 4, Obviously, you've got Dan Burn surveilling that fullback, and they're actually quite high, really. The back three from Brighton was actually quite high. They actually backed themselves, regardless of Aubameyang's pace and all of those sort of things. You had Lallana governing in the middle. You had Mulder. Again, it don't really matter where they're placed. You had Pascal Gross. You had their back three. So again, we're fighting a losing battle. We're getting eaten alive. Our midfield, it's a tough education for Lokonga. Smith Rowe is narrow, and we're at their mercy, really and truly, for large periods of that game. So this is where I'm saying Arteta we went with a 3. Now, again, everybody is a genius in hindsight, people. Everyone and their nan's a genius. But going back about to hear, as you lot could see, this is how we, in theory, were meant to line up. But as I said, in real time, we're in our own half camped like that, and there's no outball. Yes, on occasion, we had 1-2 little breaks and whatnot, but that's how we're being eaten alive. And when you look at it, could we have fared a bit better if we, again, everyone's a genius in hindsight. I don't know how it would have worked, but could we have matched them with a 3-5-2? Could you have pulled? Because you saw Lacazette come off the bench, and games like that are the games for Lacazette. There's games for Aubameyang, there's games for Lacazette. I did think, could you have went with Lacazette? If not, if you're not going to keep a free and go with Pepe and Saka, where they're more direct, and these wingers, again, let's just say Saka's on the left because his name's right there. This guy might have to think, oh boy, I can't really go for it. Saka in a foot race, it's a bit mad. Let me drop off a couple yards. Then immediately Tierney can get further up the field, etc., etc. But when we're camped in our own half, like what you saw, is a madness. Now you can't include everyone in a in a 3-5-2, but could we have went with a 3-5-2? In hindsight, who it would have been, I don't know. In hindsight, again, this is just off hindsight. Tomiyasu might have looked more comfortable in the middle just dealing with headers because he looked a bit overruled by the occasion. But I probably would have went with these two. I would have kept Tomiyasu out there. I can't lie, I don't know who I would have really got in the midfield. Again, I don't even know if Holding is fit, but I probably would have went with Holding here. Made Holding go and do this thing, if I'm honest with you. Let's remove that. Let's just say this. I would have probably went with Holding because he's decent in the air for all his problems. Probably would have went with that. Probably would have went with Smith Rowe in there. Got our fullback, obviously. Probably, and I'm even saying that you immediately probably have to drop out Saka, even though he can play centre mid. So that could have been an avenue, but or you could have brought even in game. I thought we'd switch to a back three, and maybe Saka would go right wing back. But again, where's Lokonga? Again, maybe you could have taken Saka out the team just in general. Now there's a lack of width there, if I'm honest with you, and then obviously gone with Lokonga or whatever. Now, again, there's many trips and trades, but for me, it's just I would have went with two up front. Not necessarily the midfield would have looked better. I think our back three would have coped better. 5 against 2 is always better. But I just feel instantly now, you discourage them because you've got Oba and Laka pressing together. Smith Rowe get involved in that press. The midfield in Partey and Lokonga, they can do what they brought to the club to do because of their quality. You've got the centre halves where I hope there's communication. Obviously, Tomiyasu doesn't like to get forward, but can get forward. Ben White can actually played as a right wing back, so you've got space to play ball in that. Gabriel, so immediately Tierney can get further forward. Gabriel can spread the pitch. Lokonga, again, if you want Lokonga to do that, I would have probably preferred Partey in that game because he's more experienced to do that. Let Lokonga go out there, and immediately we start to match them a bit more. Now, ironically, you probably need to go with either Maitland-Niles or Saka, and probably pull Tomiyasu. Probably go Tomiyasu inside. Now that I think about it, and it's a bit mad. But you could have went with Maitland-Niles, but just to get Saka in there, you're playing as a wing back. You're basically a winger. Get Saka in there. Immediately, you've pinned their fullbacks back. They have to think twice. If I'm going forward, I have to make it count. You've got the flying Scotsman. You've got Smith Rowe in the pockets helping with the press. So that's something I felt we could have done, people, if I'm honest with you. It's easy to sit here and say this. End of the day, we got a point. So we live to fight another day. But that's all I've got to say from a tactical front, people. I've actually included everything. Again, there isn't actually much. You all saw it. Games like this are probably the easiest. But I would say it was a healthy dose of a reality check for Arsenal fans or Arsenal if you needed one, people. But yeah, if not personnel, I do think we could have went with a 2 up front and we might have fared a bit better, and definitely our midfield would have. But yeah, that was a long one. What have you lot been saying, man? Many players should score, not just Aubameyang all the time. Exactly. To be fair, if Laka didn't start Laka, if Arteta didn't start Laka and Pepe, some of the fan base would be in uproar. I mean, fan base was in uproar about Xhaka starting the North London derby, bro. Fans are always going to say something. Obviously, if it doesn't work, we have to have a conversation, but you're the gaffer, and he's shown really and truly that he won't be swayed by decisions, because I look back to the Europa League semi-final. How many men are going to throw Smith Rowe as a false nine, Maybe not so much this season, but how many bewildering chances, Cedric, you forget he plays, then he randomly comes in, and, even at the start of this year, I know there was injuries, but Kolasinac randomly playing, despite the fact that might not have been, he weren't the worst player. So again, I don't think Arteta is swayed by that. I don't think as a manager in general, you can win everything, but yeah, man. Tomiyasu was baptized into the Premier League by Coriello, although I blame Saka for not helping out. I don't think so. I think people are gassing up Coriella's performance. Man of the match, quality, don't get it twisted, but man are acting like it's some prime Roberto Carlos. He got forward, he tested Tomiyasu, he put him on the moments, but it's expected. I wouldn't agree with that with Bukayo Saka. I think Tomiyasu looked very nervous. He wasn't winning his 1v1s. And I think it's been coming because if you listen to Tomiyasu or his teammates, he speaks to the nerves, and there has big up coach Gerald Lammy because even he's been saying, I'm going to have him on soon. He's been saying things like, Tomiyasu's a bit nervous. It was a baptism of fire. Games like this, when there's no time to breathe, we've seen, and we've got a long way to go because we had moments to breathe against Burnley, moments to breathe against Spurs, moments to breathe against Norwich. It's games like this for a minute one, it's mad. Like against Brentford, minute one, it's mad. You got to be switched on from every dead ball scenario. Games like this, we're still adapting. We're still having teething problems. I would say real Premier League games, we're still struggling with. And again, I'm not criticizing us. This is something Arsenal's going to have. We're going to have many games like this. There's going to be games we play like this, and we're not going to save any face and walk away from Brighton with a point. We're going to get none, because sometimes I think there's been little rumblings of lessons that this team have to learn, and we're going to learn it the harsh way. As I've been saying, they've been brewing. Lallana was their deepest midfielder, and we still struggle to create. Teta completely outdone by Potter. To be fair to you, it was a managerial masterclass, and Lallana showed he's old, but he's still golden, and you can't put a price on experience. And they have a more functioning midfield than us, really and truly. Like that's what it showed. And as I'd say with Arteta, he's shown he can have a plan for the big games, as you've seen numerous times. But sometimes by the stroke of that, I think sometimes he's shown he hasn't really doesn't know when. The times you're meant to be flexible, I don't think he is. The time you're meant to have stability, I don't think you are. Game and man management, still learning a lot, because I feel a lot of the times, even when we was in Europa League last season and we was playing Slavia Prague and Benfica, we might have got over the line, but there was incidences I can remember from the live watch-alongs were saying, yo, they've changed something here and they've put Arteta under problems. And I even look at Brendan Rodgers at the Emirates, because if you remember the game last season at the Emirates, we should have killed them. We was onto them. And then I think second half, he changed things. Brendan Rodgers changed things up and you could see it brewing. And I think, well, Mustafi's not here anymore, or it might have even been the season before that. I think it was last season. Mustafi's not there anymore. And obviously, you saw what happened, didn't it? You saw, Vardy got a bit of space. You know what happens. You already know the script. So it's a very interesting one. And I'm not going to say he shouldn't have went with the same team because we need stability and things, but I think a lot of us would have went to a back three. But again, it's easy for us to sit here. Lacazette, Xhaka, Nketiah, Pepe, Holding, Kolasinac, Chambers, Marie, Cedric, El Nene, all are